Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love.
Daniel was my only Albuquerque friend who visited me on the Illinois farm where I grew up. My longtime dear friend Daniel was from Martineztown. In 1984, he spent weeks with my dad and me in Illinois. My mother had already died. Daniel drove trucks there in our family business. Over 26 years later, in 2011, here in Albuquerque, Daniel told me he wanted sex with me for the first time, but not a relationship. Daniel said, if I told anyone, he would kill me and maybe kill himself. I did not have sex with him. I want to celebrate sex with a friend, not hide it as a poison secret to keep him from killing me and himself. And as he left my home that day, Daniel told me, I love you. Maybe the only time since I met him 39 years earlier. The next day, Daniel was dead. Attacked and violently killed on a street here in Albuquerque. I was devastated. I deeply loved Daniel. And I dedicate this program tonight to my beloved Daniel. Millions of men, including many who are in love and make passionate love with their wives or their girlfriends, millions of men are terrified of having their family, their friends, find out they want sex also with certain men. Some bisexual men try to smother their desire with religion. Some bisexual men bully gays, yell faggots. Some bisexual men kill themselves slowly with booze. Some bisexual men kill themselves fast with a bullet. Some bisexual men murder LGBT persons. Many bisexual men live a double life. Some bisexual men have sex with many beautiful women. They hope their hot sex with these beautiful women will shut off their strong attraction also for certain men. Until any man on earth who enjoys sex and romance with men can tell his family, his friends, his girlfriend, his wife, with no shame, no fear, no guilt, and until that he enjoys making love with men, and until any woman on earth who enjoys sex and romance with women can tell her family, her friends, her husband, her boyfriends, with no shame, no fear, no guilt, our struggle for romantic freedom must continue. My friend Judy had a doctor who thought one of her kidneys had cancer. So the doctor operated, removed that kidney. And after surgery, no cancer found in that kidney. So Judy has lived for years with one kidney. We all make many mistakes. Doctors make many mistakes. And if your doctor does not want to answer your honest questions, change doctors. My friend Dan's doctor put Dan on the statin drug for many years until Dan found out neuropathy in his feet, feeling like pins and needles and numbness caused by that damn statin drug. Dan stopped the statin drug years ago, but still has suffered for years the neuropathy in his feet. My cousin Zelima's husband was allergic to penicillin. And when he went to the hospital, Zelima or her husband told the doctor or the nurses that he was allergic to penicillin. But in spite of being told, the doctor gave Zelima's husband penicillin, and he died. My friend Chester's doctor gave Chester a very strong antibiotic drug that destroyed much of his intestinal flora. The many good germs necessary for health in Chester's intestine. And for months, many months, Chester suffered low energy, fatigue, until those good germs began to increase and regenerate. In 1975, my mother's doctor in Illinois wanted to do surgery to see if she had cancer, but we refused. We took my mother to the world-famous Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and they did many tests. They found no sign of cancer. They did not do surgery. The team of doctors there at Mayo Clinic came into her room. They were honest. They were humble enough to admit they did not know what was wrong with my mother. She definitely was a sick woman, but fortunately did not have cancer. They sent my mother home with the vitamin, an important vitamin, folic acid. But one good vitamin is like building a house with only one wall. It's not enough. Later, I wrote to our local doctor who had wanted to do surgery on my very sick mother. I told him about my mother and the Mayo Clinic. I told him my very sick mother could have died on that operating table. He wanted to do surgery. She could have died for what? He mailed back my letter and had scribbled on it that he was right in recommending surgery on my mother. Maybe the doctor feared we would sue him or tell other people about his dangerous advice that could have killed my mother. We all make many mistakes in life. Doctors make many mistakes. And if the doctor is not humble and honest enough to admit it, get a different doctor. A woman friend suffered several cancers for years. Her cancer doctor told her not to eat nutritious food when she was taking chemotherapy. That was absolute bullshit. Now, the doctor may have been sincere, really thinking that was good advice, but it wasn't good advice. Cancer patients, especially on chemotherapy, need to eat the most nutritious food possible in order to live. Sadly, my woman friend followed the cancer doctor's wrong advice not to eat nutritious food. She died. And when I was 28, I had surgery on the retinas of both my eyes, 10 weak spots and or holes on the one, 13 on the other. I was absolutely terrified of going blind. My mother had surgery twice for retina detachment at the University Hospital in Madison, Wisconsin. My mother and I both had diabetic retinopathy. She and I both were severely addicted to sugar shit, ice cream, cookies, cake, candy. When I was a kid and in my 20s, but I saw what sugar did to my mother and how she suffered hell for years. And I woke up and I changed big time. I eat nothing containing added sugar. My sweets, healthy sweets, fresh fruit. And there's a great difference between fresh fruit and candy bars. Fresh fruit has lots of fiber, vitamins, enzymes. It is alive. A candy bar is not. A candy bar is crap. The serious eye disease of diabetic retinopathy that my mother suffered from and that I had was caused largely by our severe addiction to sugar shit. If you have a car, I don't have one, wouldn't keep one if you gave me one free, but if you have a car, would you take your car for repairs to a mechanic whose own car barely runs? Would you take your car to a mechanic who says, put whatever you please in the fuel tank? Kerosene, diesel fuel, gasoline, water, dirt. It doesn't make any difference. Put it in if you feel like it. So why go to any doctor who eats junk food? Why go to any doctor who smokes cigarettes? Why go to any doctor who drinks booze? Why go to any doctor who is fat? Why go to any doctor who has not studied nutrition? Why go to any doctor who knows almost nothing about healing herbs and vitamins? Why go to any doctor who does not ask you what you eat? What you put in your fuel tank of your body? Why go to any doctor who does not ask you how much you walk, how much you exercise? Why go to any doctor who does not ask you how much you sleep, how much sunshine you get? Why go to any doctor who does not ask you if you have close friendships? Because loneliness kills. Why go to any doctor who does not welcome your questions on health? Why go to any doctor who is not humble enough, honest enough to admit he or she sometimes makes mistakes as a doctor? Why go to any doctor who acts as if he or she has nothing more to learn? Why go to any doctor who mainly prescribes drugs instead of seeing and concentrating on the causes of your sickness? I have gone to no medical doctor for many years. I've taken no prescription drugs for over 25 years. I do not have yearly physical exams. Maybe I've never had a complete physical in my whole life, a complete physical as they give now. I aim, now don't misunderstand me, I say I aim, if possible, to avoid going to doctors the rest of my life. But none of us knows for sure. Something very serious could happen to me when I leave this studio today, landing me in a hospital with a doctor. But I do my damnedest to avoid that. I eat only healthy, raw plant foods plus some raw honey, bee pollen. I walk and exercise much. I get enough sleep. I sunbathe a lot for vitamin D. I have close, dear friends. I aim to forgive. I aim to ask forgiveness. Most hospital beds would be empty if we all get serious about eating healthy, living healthy. I've studied health for over 46 years. Hundreds of books, articles, speakers, documentaries, conversations, my own experiences. There's always more to learn and to learn over about being healthy and staying healthy until the day we die. Why suffer for weeks, months, years, even decades, as many people do before they die? If you're faced with possible serious surgery or other major medical procedures, go to several doctors for their opinions. Many autopsies show the cause of death was not what the dead person was being treated for. We all make many mistakes in life, and that certainly includes doctors. If you need a doctor, do your damnedest to find a doctor who believes in natural healing, a doctor who lives healthy, him or herself, a doctor who only uses drugs and surgery as last choices in an emergency. Rats' tooth decay problems are almost the same as in our human teeth. And one study divided rats into 3 groups. The first group received a standard cooked rat food, and they averaged less than 1 cavity per rat. The second group of rats were fed a diet heavy in refined sugar, and they averaged 5 1/2 cavities per rat. The third group was fed pasteurized milk. They averaged 9 1/2 cavities per rat. For many years, I foolishly, ignorantly pigged out on cooked food, sugar shit, and pasteurized cheese and ice cream. So no wonder, almost all my teeth, sadly, are long gone. My favorite lubricant for fucking is plenty of saliva. My next favorite is cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil. I want no chemical lubricants for sex. Cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil is also great for our skin. I damn Putin's increased nuclear alert, risking nuclear war. And I damn U.S. presidents threatening to use nuclear bombs at least 32 times since the U.S. atom bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, in 1945. I damn all war by any nation, the United States, Russia, any nation. I damn Putin's mass murders in Ukraine, and I damn the U.S. mass murder of hundreds of thousands of people in Iraq some years ago. Do we remember the atrocities of this government? Do we care? As the old song says, clean up your own backyard. Are U.S. mass murders in war less evil than Putin's mass murders in war? I damn Putin's bloody invasion of Ukraine, and I damn the U.S. mass murders of millions of people in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. I damn Putin's mass murders in Ukraine, and I damn the U.S. supplying billions of dollars and weapons to Israel to murder hundreds of Palestinian boys and girls. I damn Putin's mass murder in Ukraine, and I damn the U.S. mass murder of hundreds of thousands of people in El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras. I damn Putin's war in Ukraine, and I damn Obama's murder by drones of many people in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen. Putin's war against Ukraine is fueling hatred and revenge against the Russian government. Putin's war is fueling this hatred and revenge, and just as the U.S. mass murder of millions in many nations under both Republican and Democrat presidents fueled hatred and revenge toward the U.S. government. And as Prophet Martin Luther King Jr. said almost 55 or so years ago, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today is my own government. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. did not say the U.S. is the only purveyor of violence. Many nations commit horrendous evil. But Prophet Martin Luther King Jr. said the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today is my own government. The U.S. is constantly telling other nations to shape up. And sadly, the U.S. refuses to stop stealing the resources and cheap labor in many nations, refuses to stop murdering in U.S. wars. Absolute bloody hypocrisy. The U.S. claims to be the best. It's like a man who says he's the best husband, but he beats his wife even worse than other husbands beat their wives. Lying bullshit. I wish nations and companies had sanctioned the United States for its wars as they're now doing to the Russian government. Billions of people praying to God are not going to stop the climate crisis. Billions of people praying to God are not going to prevent nuclear war. God is not, if there is a God, is not going to stop the climate crisis. We human beings caused it. It's too late now to stop the climate crisis, but we can slow the climate crisis if we wake up, all of us, if we change our ways, huge changes in our lives, in how we live, what we eat, how and how much we travel, how many children we have. If we enjoy changing to live much more simply, God is not going to prevent nuclear war. Did God stop the United States from atom bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan? Hell no. Mass murdering over 140,000 people. The United States is the only nation on earth that has atom-bombed cities. Dr. Stephen Sainsbury wrote, "As an emergency medicine physician, I treated hundreds of patients with gunshot wounds. I treated criminals who shot each other. I treated gun owners who killed their family members in drunken rages. I pronounce dead suicide victims who shot themselves with an easily accessible handgun in their home. This emergency medicine physician says, I have never, in all those years, treated a single patient who was shot by a law-abiding citizen in self-protection. Not one. Multiple reputable studies and surveys show what I observed. Choosing to have a gun in your home because it will keep you safe is a myth. It's bullshit. It's a crazy, lying bullshit. And a deadly one at that. And yet surveys of gun owners show they consistently cite self-protection as the main reason for 67% of the guns they buy. Suppose you have the same fears and obtain a handgun. Which of these two scenarios is more likely? Choice one, that gun you just bought will save your life from criminals or home invaders. This is known as defensive gun use. Choice two, that gun will be used to kill you or a family member, whether that means the murder of a family member or an accidental shooting or suicide. It's choice number two by a landslide, says this emergency medicine physician. In 2017, for example, according to FBI reports, for every justifiable homicide, a defensive gun use death, there were 35 criminal homicides. And that doesn't even include the thousands of deaths each year by suicide or the accidental deaths that occur when there's a handgun in the home. What's more likely, that someone will break into your home, threaten your family, or that a member of your family, in a moment of anger or drunkenness, will resort to wielding that same weapon against you? Or, in a moment of despair, a loved one will turn that easily accessible gun on themselves? Or that your 5-year-old, who knows exactly where you keep your gun, will accidentally shoot himself? Certain behaviors, not wearing a seat belt, a shoulder harness, or smoking cigarettes, increase your risk of injury and death. Having a handgun in the home is no different. The presence of a gun in your home dramatically increases the risk of homicide, suicide, accidental deaths. Be responsible. Be wise. Don't buy into the myth of owning a gun for self-defense. The life you save may be your own. I'm so glad that our home, where I grew up, did not have a gun in the house. I have never owned a gun. I hate guns passionately. I compliment Pope Francis for going to the Russian embassy to oppose Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And sadly, over 100 years ago, the Russian Orthodox Church largely supported the bloody, brutal, greedy czars that ruled Russia then. Putin has strongly supported the anti-gay Russian Orthodox Church. do any Russian Orthodox leaders now have the conscience, the courage to damn publicly Putin's war in Ukraine? If Putin continues his evil war against Ukraine, millions of people worldwide may hate and fear the Russian government as much as they hate and fear the U.S. government for its many wars. They told them they had bad blood. What they actually had was syphilis. But the United States Public Health Service never shared that diagnosis with the almost 400 African American men, most of them poor, most of them undereducated sharecroppers. They recruited for a secret study at Tuskegee Institute in 1932, 90 years ago. Indeed, health officials did little for those men for 40 years except watch the disease progress. And that was the goal, to see what happens when syphilis is not stopped. They did see. Syphilis is a venereal disease that can lead to paralysis, blindness, deafness, dementia, heart trouble, brain damage, and death. And people often point to this so-called Tuskegee experiment to explain why African Americans tend to not trust the medical establishment. But while what happened in Alabama was evil, obscene, it was not unique. To the contrary, from experimental procedures on the vaginas of enslaved women to grave robbers stealing black bodies for use in medical schools, to forced sterilization in the name of eugenics, to studies revealing that white doctors think black people feel less pain, to new mother Serena Williams having to battle doctors and nurses who ignored her as she suffered a life-threatening medical emergency. Black people in this nation have been routinely betrayed by the medical profession, whose motto is supposed to be, first, do no harm. So, black people not trusting medical doctors makes a lot of sense from the tragic history. A woman writes, or maybe it's a man, I'm not sure. 8 years ago, I found my son's body in the street. He had been killed by a hit-and-run driver on the way home from school, and since then I've met with many other mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers who've lost loved ones. They all agree with me on the following point. Please talk about the person we have lost. Even if the mention of his name causes us to cry a little. It's a joy to speak of my son and to know that he has not been totally forgotten. I'm hurt when people who knew him never mention his name. It's as if these people are trying to pretend that he never existed. To deny that this beautiful child was an important part of our lives is both impossible and unrealistic. We may not be able to control what happens to us, death, accidents, life's blows, but we do have a choice as to how we deal with our losses. Viktor Frankl, a respected psychiatrist, survived a Nazi concentration camp because of his great love for his wife who died there. Frankl was determined not to let the Nazis destroy his spirit or his will to keep living. He kept himself alive by thinking about and speaking about his beloved wife. She was a key to his survival. Please tell your readers how important it is for those of us who have suffered losses to speak of the departed, to remember the good times, and to know that others remember the good times as well. Ann Landers replied, "You have let them know that the real sadness comes from believing that loved ones have been forgotten. Bringing their names into normal conversations is a lovely thing to do." Parents, if you want your children to be open and honest, are you always open and honest with them? Do you ever ask them to lie for you about anything? If you want your children to be dependable, do you keep your promises to them and to others? If you want your children to apologize and ask for forgiveness when they wrong you, do you apologize, ask forgiveness when you wrong them? If you want them to be warm and affectionate, do you hug them often with deep feeling? And how can you lecture your kids not to use street drugs if you are hooked on booze or cigarettes or Valium or sugar shit? Never demand your children to obey you and other authorities without questioning. When parents teach kids to follow orders and to obey other authorities with no questioning, these kids often become soldiers who murder on command with no conscience in Auschwitz, the West Bank, Ukraine, Vietnam, Iraq, Chechnya, Afghanistan. Teach kids by our own lives to question deeply everything, to follow their conscience, no matter the cost, and to love and to do good to all people, including our enemies. The signs are scary. Teens holding up in their rooms, ignoring friends, family, even food and a shower, while their grades plummet and their anger gets worse and worse. The culprit, in some cases, is not alcohol or drugs. It's video games, which for some kids can be as powerfully addictive, as dangerous as heroin or booze or meth. Joyce Protopopos of Frisco, Texas, said her 17-year-old son, Michael, was a video addict. And over nearly 2 years, video games, internet games, transformed him from an outgoing, academically gifted teen into a reclusive manipulator who flunked 2 10th grade classes, spent several hours a day and night playing a popular online video game called World of Warcraft. His mother says, "My father was an alcoholic, and I saw exactly the same thing in Michael. We battled him until October of last year. We went to therapists. We tried taking the game away. He would threaten us physically. He would curse us, call us every name imaginable. It was as if he was possessed." And when she suggested to therapists that Michael had a video game addiction, she said nobody was familiar with it. They all poo-pooed it. Last fall, and this was written years ago, the family found a therapist who told us he was addicted, period. They sent Michael to a therapeutic boarding school where he has spent the past 6 months at a cost of $5,000 a month that insurance will not cover, his mother said. A support group called Online Gamers Anonymous has many postings on its website from gamers seeking help. Liz Woolley of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, created the site after her 21-year-old son fatally shot himself in 2001 while playing an online game she said destroyed his life. In a February posting, a 13-year-old identified only as Ian told of playing video games for nearly 12 hours straight. He said he felt suicidal and wondered if he was addicted. The boy said, "I think I need help." Carrie Seidman, a woman that I met some years ago, has these wise words about relationships. Almost anyone who has loved has at one time or another lost. And when it happens, how we react can make the difference in the quality of our lives forevermore. She says, "My own realization 6 years ago that the anguish I had held on to for more than a decade over my own marital breakup had done nothing but cause further damage. When my marriage crashed," she said, "I felt like the rug had been ripped out from under me. In truth, it had. But it was me who refused to stand up again. Either because I was sick of playing the martyr or because I had evolved, I hope, I finally realized that when a relationship dies, hanging on to the hurt, the anger, the blame, the revenge for anything more than the brief period of insanity that follows such a disappointment is as surely damaging as the breakup itself. It now seems so simple I cannot believe it took me 13 years to get it. Life is not fair. Life is not equal. People lie. People do bad things, make bad choices, create havoc in the lives of people they say they love. All that's a given. What isn't so clear is how we take the blow. We can become bitter, angry, combative. We can become wimpish, withdrawn, fearful, or any number of other shades in between. In fact, that's the only choice we do have when someone breaks our heart, how we are going to take it, how we're going to react. She says, what took me far too long to realize is the choice will have a far greater effect on oneself than on anyone else. The words that made it click for me, and they came not from a psychologist or a preacher, but from a girlfriend who had been through her own hard knocks, was to be the bigger person. Not bigger in the sense of better, bigger in the sense of more generous, more forgiving, more the kind of person we'd like to see when we look at ourselves. Carrie Seidman says, now I know it's possible to forgive and move on because I have done it. Okay, I admit I was a little slow. I know my life has been better and fuller and happier since I've moved on. I've even surprised myself on occasion with my Zen-like calm. Picture a pleasant holiday dinner involving all the players in my divorce at my house. Imagine a pleasant holiday dinner at her home involving all the players in her divorce, including her ex, in her home. And sometimes people ask me how I have mended those fences. And I tell them the answer is really quite simple. I did not mend the fences. I took the fences down. A worldwide study in 195 nations found there is no safe level of drinking booze. Nada, zero, none. Booze has messed up, cut short the lives of many dear friends of mine. I drink no booze. Booze is slow poison to every cell of our body. Booze can cause heart disease, cancer, car crashes, drowning, stabbings, shootings, beatings, house fires, suicide, freezing to death, brain damage, depression. Many people begin as social drinkers, eventually become lonely, sick alcoholics, dying young. Millions on booze say and do things, including sexual assault and murder, they later terribly regret. Now, marijuana is legal in New Mexico for persons 21 and over. I would greatly prefer my friends on booze, if they're going to use something, would switch completely to only homegrown organic marijuana if they're going to take something. Marijuana can help over 40 serious health problems. but never buy marijuana from Mexico. The drug cartels there have tortured and murdered thousands. I strongly recommend the book in our city library, Firewater, How Alcohol is Killing My People and Yours, by the Cree Indian Harold Johnson. The title again, Firewater, How Alcohol is Killing My People and Yours. Get it from the library by author Cree Indian Harold Johnson. He writes about the awful curse of booze, especially among Native people in Canada. I know of no other book where a Native American person speaks so frankly about the evil of booze and the massive suffering it causes and what to do about it. Booze can also cause high blood pressure, stroke, liver damage, stomach ulcers, blood vessel disorders, addiction, and men not able to get a hard-on. Booze can cause death. Nelson Mandela of South Africa said, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart than hate." An African proverb, if you want to go quickly, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And Archbishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa said, "Nuclear weapons are an obscenity. They're the very opposite of humanity, of goodness in the world. What security do nuclear weapons help establish?" Booze, for me, hell no, not for any amount of money on earth. My fresh piss to be healthy, yes. I have drunk my fresh piss every day since November 10th, 1999, over 22 years. Good night, and to your health.
Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high, and when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on. And when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on.